Well, hey there everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make these Christmas cards with the Cricut Joy machine. You could also use one of your other Cricut machines. The supplies I'm using for this project is a Cricut Joy, the card insert mat, some glitter cardstock and regular cardstock, a straight cutter. If you wish to cut your own card inserts, I'll be cutting my own because I don't want to be forced to use the card inserts by Cricut. I prefer to use my own paper. You'll want a pen to write within the inside of the card. You'll need a Cricut scraper, and then you'll also want the Christmas card templates, which are linked below in the video description for you, and I'm going to show you where you can find them right now. First things first, you need to download these files. You can find them on members.abbikirstencollections.com. You could also follow this video as a guide if you're using any of the Cricut Design Space card inserts for the Joy, or if you find them elsewhere, you could still follow this process. But I do have some Christmas designs here in my member vault. And if you need to know how to search them, just at the top search bar, type in cards, and it will come right up. When you click on it, you'll be able to download the SVG file. All of the cards are in one SVG file, and then you can ungroup and scale them. So let's go ahead and go into Design Space. I've already imported my designs here, but if you're new to Design Space, you would just click the Upload button and click Upload Image, and then browse your computer and find the file and bring it into Design Space that way. I already have mine right down here, so I'm just going to click on that recent upload and add it to Canvas. Let me get this one off of my screen here. I'm just going to group it and hide it over here in the Layers panel. Okay, so this is going to come in as one group, and you can just scale it up to get it a little larger here. You're going to want to click the Ungroup button to get each one of these separated from each other, so you can just grab that one. Let's just work with this one for now. And I'll just group these and hide them so they're off to the side there. So the Cricut Joy cards can be made in a couple of different sizes. There's one that is 6.25 inches high, and then there's one that is 5.5 inches high. I'm going to be doing the 5.5. So after some testing, I found that setting this to about 5.2 inches high was just about perfect when working with the mat. So if you're going to be making the 5.5 inch high card like I am, then I recommend setting this scale to 5.2, and you can just type it right up here in the edit bar. You'll also notice here that our little corner pieces where our card insert is going to be going in, those are actually grouped, and they can be ungrouped. So let me ungroup this file, this part of the file really quickly here. And the reason I left these to where you could actually keep this part separate is because I wanted to give you the freedom that if you wanted to put a different design in here, you could actually pop in something different and create your own card design insert. Maybe you have, something in Cricut Access you want to put in here, or type out a different design or something for the front, then you could just use this part if you wanted to in order to create that. The only advice I will give you that is if you do that, you need to make sure that you're creating something that is all interconnected and that there is space between everything so that you're not losing pieces. For example, if you look at our O here, notice the O is not all the way closed, and that will allow the center of the O not to be lost. So just think about, like, from a stencil perspective when you're doing these card inserts, because everything has to have a connection in order for the details to remain. I'm going to put this back where it was, and you're just going to want to make sure that you attach this together so it stays exactly as it is here. So just click and drag. Even if it's grouped, you still need to use that attach tool. So click and drag and just use that attach button at the bottom of the layers panel there, and you'll be good to go. Of course, you might want to save your project here so that you don't have to reset these files up or anything like that in the future. You can just click and go. Make sure your Joy machine is the one selected because we're going to be featuring the Cricut Joy card insert mat. And I'm going to click the Make It button here. For some reason it's telling me it's a big project, but I have no idea why. Alright, so we're going to select on the card mat and click Done. And then over here, like I said before, there's two different sizes of cards. We're going to be doing the 4.25 by 5.5 inch high. So make sure you select that in the drop down. You'll also want to take a look here at your card. Everything is going to be up at the top corner here, but you want to shift this. See how there's a little bit of wiggle room as I hold it with my mouse? You want to shift this just a bit to make sure it's centered. So just take a look at the outline here that's going around it and make sure it's centered here on the card mat, and it looks center to my eye now. It usually only takes a very slight shift and you're good to go. Okay, so we're going to click continue, and I'm going to be selecting a glitter cardstock because that's what I'm cutting out. But you will select your according material. If it's a medium weight cardstock or lightweight or a heavy weight, you would just select that on the next screen. Alright, so I have my Cricut Joy card insert mat here, and I'm going to be using my own card inserts. I did not purchase these. I cut them from glitter cardstock and from cardstock paper that I had. So you can check out the information below this video in order to know the dimensions to cut your paper as well. I'm just going to fold this in half and crease it just like that, and then open it up here and lift up the card mat here and slide it through. Make sure you push it all the way through and all the way up to the top so that everything is sitting exactly where it's supposed to. That will ensure that your design cuts out correctly on the card mat. You might want to burnish it a little bit. You won't have to do this if you have a very new sticky mat, but mine's kind of been used about 100 times, so I'm burnishing it just to make sure that nothing's going to shift on me during the cutting process. So now I'm going to push this against the rollers. Okay, my cut's done, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that unload button that's on my screen there and close this up. And I always teach that you should peel the mat away from the material to help prevent the curling. It's a little trickier with the card mat because you're dealing with such a thick mat here. It can still be done. I still recommend flipping it over and just going really, really slow, especially if it's a new card mat, because it is going to be sticky. Just go nice and slow. Get any little pieces out there that cling to your design. And now I have the card insert that I have cut, and you can just go ahead and insert it right in. If you want to, you could also add, try my star there. You could also add a little bit of scrapbooking tape back here just to kind of help it want to cling to the front once you sit it all the way down. That's completely optional. I'm going to give it a try. Just be really delicate with where you put the tape, especially if you're going over the letters at all. Just be really delicate. I usually kind of go around the edges here. And it's just meant to keep it from sliding around a little bit. When you're inserting the card, just be patient with it. It does take a little bit to kind of settle into the corners there. And just go slow so you don't end up ripping your card. The next step is to type out our message in design space using the text tool, and then we'll be able to add it to the inside of our card. So if you've never used the text tool before, let's go over that. It's right over here on the left hand side, and you're just going to click on that text, and this box will pop up here to type your message in. It's going to default to probably some sort of Cricut font, and we can change that in just a moment. So I'm just going to start typing this message out, and it'll start appearing on your screen. Now anytime you want to do a line break and go down to the next line, you need to hit enter. Once you're done typing your message, you can just click right off and that text box will disappear. If you need to get it back, double click and it will reappear, and then you can put your cursor in there and edit if you need to. I'm going to shrink this down because it's quite large. And it's a basic cut operation, so we need to change this to a pen operation. So click on that operation menu and then select pen. And if you leave it as the default font, it'll probably turn it into bubble letters, and that is because we need to select a writing font for it to look like this example over here. So with that font selected, then you'll just click on that font drop down menu, and you'll want to filter by writing fonts. So click on that filter and go to writing fonts and check that. And then these will be all the fonts that will write as you would naturally write with a pen, not the bubble letters that we often see with the more standard system fonts and things like that. So you'll just want to pick something here. I'm just going to choose this one. It might take a second to load the change. It usually takes about 10 seconds. There we go. And then I want this to be a center alignment, not to the right. So the alignment right here, I'm going to select center to center that. And I think I want the words to be spaced a little different. So I'm going to double click on that again and just going to go up to this line and change it just a touch. There we go. So it'll fit more of that rectangular form inside of the card. And the only thing you need to do now is to think about your scaling. So our card is 5.5 inches high, so this is a little bit too big. I'm going to scale this down to about 4 inches high. So there's some grace around the writing. You don't want it to be edge to edge. That wouldn't look natural to a card. So I'm going to scale this down to about 4 inches high, but that's really your preference and how your message was typed out. You might need to scale it a little smaller if you're doing a longer message. You may also want to choose your pen type. So I have my Joy machine selected. You can see there's this little exclamation point over here in the layers panel. And all that means is that we don't have a pen that is compatible with the Joy machine. And it just defaults to kind of always doing that. I really don't know why it doesn't automatically switch you over, but all you need to do is click next to that pen operation and just select black. If you're using a different color, that's perfectly fine. The Joy cannot tell what color you load into the machine, so you can just either choose a color to represent or just make it black and load whatever Cricut Joy pen you would like into your machine. The next step is to go to our cut screen. I'm just going to hide one of these here, and I'm going to click that Make It button up at the top. And you'll select the card mat just like before. And then just like we did with our cards when we made the card insert cutouts, you're going to want to make sure that you move your message to the center. So just center it to where it looks good to your eye. That looks fine to me. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but it looks fairly centered to your eye. Again, make sure you're choosing the right material size. So I need to make sure I'm selecting the 4.25 by 5.5 because that's the size of my card. So you want to do that actually before you move your message here. And then just kind of move it to the center so that it's going to write in the center of your card and not up at the top. And then we'll click continue here and we'll load our pen. All right, so when we go to write with this, we want to actually reverse the card now. So you're going to very gently just fold the card back here. And you're going to slide it through the card insert mat. Make sure it's completely square to the top. Takes a minute to wiggle it. So because I am using a glitter cardstock here and this mat's been used a few times, it's not wanting to stick to the mat. So in case you run into a similar situation, because we're just writing and we're not cutting, we can use a little bit of washi tape just to make sure that that stays down. And then we'll be able to remove it afterwards without damaging our paper. So just in case you run into a similar situation, I thought I would include this extra little hack. This is not something I would recommend if you're cutting. This is just because I'm writing with a pen and it doesn't have to be super stuck to the mat. It just has to be still and flat, okay? So that is a little hack for you. Now before you go any further, make sure that you remove your blade from the Cricut Joy machine and put in your pen. Close the clamp, wiggle it to make sure it is secure, and then go ahead and press the go button on your screen. Okay, so my writing's done. I'm gonna hit that unload button on my screen. Removing my washi tape here. If your mat's super sticky, you may not need to add this. This is just an extra hack that I wanted to include. Go ahead and carefully wiggle your card out. And then you're gonna want to fold it back the correct direction give it a good crease. You might want to use your Cricut scraper to sort of crease it back the correct direction there. And there we go. So now we have our card that we made, and we wrote directly inside of it. That's exactly how I would write on the inside of the card. Now, if you don't want to write directly on the inside of the card, you could always just use one of the standard mats instead of the card mat, and you could write on a square cutout and then just place that square cutout inside the card with the writing on it. That's an alternative option for you as well.